Let's continue with testing your skills. First, I am going to hide the primary planes and then hide the display plane. Next, we need to add a couple additional features. Looking at the finished part, we need this extrude cut and this one last flange with a hem. So let's go back to our part. And let's start with the extrude cut. Now, if you recall from an earlier lesson, we talked about the slight difference between extrude cut found in the features ribbon and the extrude cut found on the sheet metal ribbon. The difference is we can link it to the sheet metal thickness if we select the extrude cut from the sheet metal ribbon. So let's do that. The very first thing it prompts me for is my sketch plane. I'll rotate normal to it, zoom up a little bit, and we are looking for an octagon with a 65mm distance across the flats. So I'm going to go to my octagon command, make sure the number of sides is at 8, go out and select my center point, and then drag it out. I am going to add a relation between the front plane and this bottom line here as parallel. And that will position the octagon in the correct orientation. Now let's add a smart dimension of 65mm across the flats. Looking at the finished model, we had a couple rectangular cuts. Now there's a few ways you can do this. I think one of the easier ways to do it is simply use a center point rectangle. So I'm going to grab the center point, stretch it out, apply a couple smart dimensions. We'll set this one to 75 and this leg to 20. Now before we finish the sketch, we need to trim a few of these lines. There's a number of options for trimming. I am going to select Trim Away Inside. I'll select my two bounding entities and then select the lines to trim. I'll do the same in this direction. Now I'm going to zoom up and use Trim the Closest. And trim this back so we have a couple sharp corners there. And do the same on this side. Looks like the sketch is completed. I'm going to close out of the trim command, close out of the sketch. And before we leave the cut extrude, just make sure we're linked to the thickness. That way, if we decide to change the sheet metal thickness at a later time, the extrude cut will pass through that entire thickness. Okay, a couple last items to add. We're going to go back to the sheet metal ribbon, and we're going to add an edge flange and a hem, so our model appears like this. Now this edge flange will be the correct length because the flange is for the entire edge, and it terminates at these two flanges here. We're going to change a few of these settings in the property manager. We want the flange length to be blind at a distance of 12, and I do want it to be at outer virtual sharp in material outside. Close out of it. And the one last item to finish off testing your skills is to add a hem. So we're going to select this edge here, and we are looking for a closed hem, and we want the hem length to be 4mm. We're also going to have this closed hem bend outside. Closed hem and a length of 4. And there we go. That was testing your skills.